The paint won't stick. Restorers have tried for 600 years. They mix the pigment, they match the shade, they brush it carefully over the two long cuts on her cheek, and within weeks, the paint cracks and falls away, as if the wound doesn't want to be hidden. Have you ever had that feeling? You cover something up, a scar, a memory, a version of yourself you don't show anyone, and it keeps surfacing, in your voice, in how you flinch when someone gets too close. There is a face in a monastery in Poland that has been doing this for centuries, refusing to be fixed, refusing to look the way people want her to look. And if you understand why, you might understand something about yourself you've been avoiding. Scene 1. The monastery, 1430. It is April. The air in Jasna Gora smells of beeswax and wet stone. The monks have heard the rumors for days. Hussite raiders moving through the hills, burning churches, smashing relics. The prior has ordered the gates closed. But gates are wood, and wood breaks. They come at dawn. The soldiers push through the chapel. One of them, the chronicles don't give his name, just what he does, walks up to the painting. She hangs in the dim light, dark face, gold halo, eyes that seem to follow. He draws his sword. The first slash cuts across her left cheek. The second, parallel, deliberate, crosses below it. He raises the blade a third time and falls. The monks who recorded this do not use the word miracle. They write simply that the man collapsed on the stone floor and did not rise. His companions fled. The sword was left where it dropped, but here is the part that has troubled experts ever since. When later generations tried to repair those cuts, carefully with the finest materials, the paint refused to bond. The original icon was made with encaustic, a wax-based technique. Every restoration attempt used tempera, and tempera does not adhere to wax. The restorers knew this. They tried anyway. Again and again, the cuts remain. Two parallel lines on the cheek of a mother, as if the image itself insists, do not erase what happened to me. Scene 2. The same monastery, 1655. 225 years later. The walls of Jasna Gora are still standing, but now an entire army surrounds them. It is the Swedish deluge. The Protestant forces of King Charles Gustav have swept through Poland like a flood. City after city falls. The king himself calls it inevitable. Poland, he says, is already his. All that remains is this monastery on a hill. Inside, 70 monks and a few hundred mercenaries with old cannons. Outside, thousands of professional soldiers with siege equipment. The Swedish commander sends a message. Surrender the fortress and the painting. Hand over the Black Madonna. This ends peacefully. Prior Augustin Kłodecki reads the message. He is not a soldier. He is a thin man with ink-stained fingers who writes poetry in Latin between prayers. He has never commanded anything larger than a choir. He sends back one word. No. The siege lasts 40 days. 40 days of cannon fire against limestone walls. 40 days of monks loading muskets they barely know how to hold. 40 days of the painting hanging in the chapel while the ceiling shakes and dust falls on her face like gray snow. There are moments, the chronicles describe them, when the defenders are ready to break. When the walls crack and the smoke is so thick no one can see. And each time, someone walks into the chapel, looks at the two scars on her cheek, and walks back out to the wall. She has already been struck. She is still here. On the 40th day, the Swedes withdraw. No one fully explains why. The official history cites logistical problems, an approaching winter, supply lines stretched too thin. But Poland reads it differently. King Jan Kazimierz rides to Jasna Gora. He kneels. And in the Cathedral of Lwów, before the assembled nobility, he does something no European monarch has done before or since. He crowns the painting. Not a person, a painting. Queen of Poland. And she has held that title for nearly 400 years. Not because she is beautiful, not because she is serene, but because she is scarred, blackened, and still looking straight at you. Scene 3. Chartres, France, 2014. A different kind of blade. The restoration team at the Cathedral of Chartres finishes their work on the statue known as Notre-Dame du Pilier, a Black Madonna venerated for over 500 years. They have cleaned off the soot, the candle wax, the accumulated grime of centuries. When the veil comes off, the pilgrims gasp. She is white, pale skin, pink cheeks, a faint blush on the lips. The restorers explained calmly that the original statue was never intended to be dark. The blackness, they say, was accidental. Candle smoke, oxidation, centuries of touching and kissing. They have returned her to her true form. The reaction is immediate and furious. Pilgrims who walked hundreds of kilometers to kneel before a dark-faced mother now stand before a stranger. Letters flood the diocese. Online forums erupt. One phrase keeps appearing, in French, in English, in Polish. They erased her. Not repaired, not restored, erased. Because what the restorers treated as dirt, the blackness, the wear, the marks of time and devotion, the faithful treated as identity. The darkness was not damage, it was meaning. A theologian in Paris puts it simply, you cannot restore a living thing, you can only kill it and replace it with a memory. And now the question that connects a Hussite sword, a Swedish siege, and a bottle of solvent in a French cathedral. But wait, the strangest part isn't the sword cuts or the siege or even the whitening. The strangest part is why she was dark in the first place. And the answer the church gives is not the only answer. Here is what the official explanation says. The blackness comes from candle smoke, from centuries of incense, from the chemical reaction of old paint with air and light. It is, in this version, an accident, a side effect of devotion. And here is what the Song of Songs says, chapter 1, verse 5. Words attributed to a woman in love. I am black and beautiful, not black but beautiful, as some translations soften it. Black and beautiful. As if the darkness is not something to overcome, but something to claim. Medieval theologians, Bernard of Clairvaux among them, read that line and saw in it a description of the soul. Not the soul as we imagine it, clean and glowing. The soul as it actually is, darkened by experience, worn by grief, marked by choices you cannot undo, and still beautiful. Think about that for a moment. We live in a culture that worships restoration. We whiten teeth, we smooth skin, we curate our lives into clean, bright squares on a screen. We remove what looks like damage and call it self-care. The Black Madonna does the opposite. She holds the damage in plain sight. She does not explain it. She does not apologize for it. The scars on the Czestochowa icon are not hidden behind gold leaf. They are part of the image. Pilgrims touch them. They are venerated, not despite the wounds, but through them. What if that is the theology? Not that suffering has a purpose, not the tidy answer that pain makes you stronger or teaches you something quieter and harder. What if God is not waiting for you to get clean before showing up? What if the sacred is not in the light, the gold, the cathedral ceiling, but in the cave, the dirt, the scar that won't close? There is a reason over 400 Black Madonnas were placed on sites that were sacred long before Christianity arrived. Caves where the Druids worshipped, springs where the Romans left offerings to Cybele, grottos where the name of Mary had never been spoken. The church arrived and did not destroy these places. It placed a dark-faced mother where a dark-faced goddess had been, as if to say, what you were looking for, it was always real. It just has a different name now. An Orthodox theologian might wince at that, but the grandmother who walks 300 kilometers on blistered feet to kneel before a blackened face in Czestochowa, she does not think in categories. She thinks in recognition. She looks at that face and sees her own life, the losses, the years, the marks that no one can paint over. And for a moment, she is not alone in them. That is what the Chartres restorers didn't understand. Or maybe they understood perfectly and did it anyway. When you strip the darkness from a Black Madonna, you do not reveal the original. You remove the mirror. And a mirror is only useful when it shows you what you actually look like. Not the version you present, not the version you wish you were. The one that stands in the dark and says, I am still here. There is a village in southern Italy, small, the kind of place that doesn't appear on most maps, where women gather once a year before a Black Madonna in a chapel that smells of damp plaster and dried rosemary. They dance, not politely, not quietly. They dance the tarantella, fast, rhythmic, relentless, while drums pound in a pattern older than the church itself. The tradition says the dance heals the bite of the tarantula, but the spider is a metaphor. Everyone in the village knows what it really means. One woman, her name is not recorded, only her story, passed through a local priest's memoir, had not spoken in 4 months. Not illness, not a physical problem. The doctors in Naples had examined her, prescribed medication, sent her home. She simply stopped. Stopped speaking, stopped eating with the family, stopped leaving the house. Her husband said it was as if she had stepped behind a glass wall. Her mother brought her to the chapel on the feast day. She did not want to go. She stood in the corner with her arms crossed while the other women danced. The drums kept going. At some point, the priest writes that he could not say exactly when it happened. She uncrossed her arms. Then she moved one foot, then the other. Then her body took over, and she was spinning with the rest of them, her hair loose, her shoes kicked off against the stone wall. She danced for 2 hours. When she stopped, she was weeping. And when she spoke, for the first time in 4 months, she did not say anything profound. She said, "I'm thirsty." The doctors could not explain it. She could not explain it either. She only said afterward that when the drumming started, she felt something crack, not in her body, but behind her eyes, as if a door she had sealed shut had been opened from the other side. She came back every year after that. A different story, a different country. 1979, Poland, still under communist rule. A woman named Helena, her granddaughter shared this account decades later on a Jasna Gora pilgrimage forum, walks from Krakow to Czestochowa. It takes her 9 days. She is 53 years old. Her knees swell by the 3rd day, and by the 6th, she wraps them in torn bedsheets soaked in vinegar. She is not walking for herself. Her son, Marek, has been arrested. He printed leaflets for an underground workers' union. The charge is sedition. The sentence could be years. The authorities have told the family nothing for weeks. Helena does not write letters to officials. She does not protest. She walks. When she arrives at Jasna Gora, she kneels before the icon. The chapel is packed. It is always packed in those years. The monastery is the one place the regime cannot fully control. Around her, hundreds of people are praying, whispering, weeping. The air is thick with candle smoke. She looks up at the face, dark, scarred, steady. And she says, her granddaughter remembers the exact words because Helena repeated them for the rest of her life. She says, "You know what it is to watch your son be taken. I am not asking you to fix it. I am asking you to be in it with me." Marek was released 7 months later. Whether the prayer caused it, whether it was political pressure, whether it was a bureaucratic accident, Helena never claimed to know. But she said the thing that changed was not his release. It was that moment in the chapel, when she stopped asking for rescue and asked for presence. She said the weight didn't disappear, it just stopped being hers alone. People come to the Black Madonna when the diagnosis is in and the options have run out. Not because they expect a reversal, but because they need to stand before something that has survived what they are going through. People come when a relationship is ended in a way that doesn't make sense, when the grief is tangled with anger and guilt, and there is no clean story to tell anyone. They come because her face does not ask for a clean story. People come when they have lost a faith they once had, or never had one, and feel the absence of it like a phantom limb. They come not to believe, but to sit in a space where belief has accumulated like smoke on wood and see if anything sticks. If you ever go, the main shrine is the Jasna Gora monastery in Czestochowa, Poland. The icon is unveiled at specific hours each day. The ritual of the revealing is itself part of the experience. The silver cover lifts and the face appears, and the silence in the chapel shifts. The feast of the Black Madonna of Czestochowa falls on the 26th of August. On that day, hundreds of thousands of pilgrims converge, many of them walking for days from Warsaw, from Krakow, from villages whose names you will not find in guidebooks. In France, if you go to Rocamadour, a village built into a cliff in the Lot Valley, You climb 216 steps to reach the chapel of the Black Madonna. Pilgrims once climbed them on their knees. Some still do. And in Saint-Maurice-de-la-Mer, on the southern coast, every May the Roma people carry the statue of Black Sarah, their patron, down to the sea and bathe her in the waves. It is not in any official liturgical calendar. It is older than calendars. The paint won't stick. You heard that at the beginning. And maybe now you hear it differently. Maybe it is not about the painting at all. Maybe it is about the thing in you that resists being covered over. The grief you managed, but never finished. The question you buried under competence. The version of yourself that you put away because it wasn't presentable, and that keeps bleeding through anyway. The Black Madonna does not offer you an answer. She offers you the permission to stop pretending you don't have the question. 600 years, swords, sieges, solvents, and still that dark face, still those two scars on the cheek, still those eyes that do not look away. What if the place you keep avoiding, the wound, the doubt, the thing you cannot fix, is exactly where the sacred has been waiting? If that question stayed with you, leave a comment. Not about the video, about the last time you stopped trying to fix something and what happened when you did. Subscribe if you want more stories like this, and share this with someone who might need to hear it, not because you know what they're going through, but because you suspect they've been carrying it alone.